Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you. My name is Victoria Sargent. I'm Assistant Director at the Feld Career Center here at the School of Management. I'm also one of the planners for the event today, so we're excited that you're here. There was great energy around the topic of millennial advising, and I hope to keep that energy going as we integrate to the next topic, which is going to focus on connecting learning with identity and career. What we're going to do is we're going to start with a panel that'll go on for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to go back out into our breakout sessions, and you'll have another set of questions to discuss and then report out. So I'm going to quickly introduce our panel so we can get moving. We have Kimberly Delgizzo as Director of Center for Career Development. We have Paul, oh, okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have Paul Lipton, who's a Research Associate Professor of Neuroscience, Biology, and Psychological Brain Sciences. We have Jeannette Guillemin, who's a Assistant Director of the School of Visual Arts in the College of Fine Arts. And we have Linda Wells, who's a Special Assistant to the Provost. So we're going to kick it off with Linda. Go ahead.
We've already cut you off. It's a pleasure to be here. My colleague Paul asked if we could see a show of hands just in terms of who is represented here. Those who are on the faculty side of the house, how many people here are primarily faculty members? Great. And professional advisors in the advising? That means all of us. I mean, we're in one category or the other for purposes of this session. Thank you so much. As I began to become a part of this, I've talked for some time to my colleague Stacy Godnick about my interest in identity and work. How do you find your life's work? How do you find what your career, not just what your occupation is going to be, but how much of your identity do you take from the work you do? And I was really interested to hear Rachel's remarks, because one of the things that I used to do with students is ask them, do you define yourself in terms of your identity as a producer or a consumer? Do you take most of your pleasure and identity from production or consumption? And it won't surprise you to know that not too many of them take it from production. And I think there are lots of ways to explain what that might mean. But I try to talk to them about the history of labor, for example, as one way to get into this, and to look at the family in an agrarian system as a unit of production. Lots of children, harness up and pull, babe. Not too precious. To the move to industrialization and then a post-industrial world, to the family as a unit of consumption. That is, the family, vacations, going out to dinner, going to the movies, interactions and family relationships through consumption. I think it's one way to think about why students come to us thinking that college is one more thing to be consumed, and that going into the workplace is anxiety producing, one might argue for them, because now I'm going to have to be a producer. I will say that I'm taken by the notion of Stanley Fish, a literary critic and kind of bad boy public intellectual, who said that in his long career, he has never seen a student who failed to get a job, but he's seen lots of students who failed to get an education. So not to lose sight of that, because our occupation is education here. But how can we broaden that just a little bit to look at helping students, coming to understand that college is good in itself. It is an end in itself. It is valuable for your lifetime. But also to acknowledge to them and with them that it is a means to an end. And I think their parents are especially delighted with the idea that we might do that. So we want to talk a little bit about connecting identity to career. And what does the 21st century student and employer and workplace tell us about the challenges for the academy? I took this line, and you have this article, college students think they're ready for the workplace, employers aren't so sure. And the last line, the gap between how prepared students feel and employers' assessment of them has been established, and that, at least the author thinks that's been established in that article, of that gap. But the question now is what students, employers, and colleges are going to do about it. And the graph, I think, is telling that this gap between students and employers' perceptions of their readiness for the workplace. Not surprising, millennials, even though they define themselves primarily as consumers, think there's going to be no problem for them in the workplace. They're ready to go. And so they have probably twice the perception as employers about readiness in various skills. Not surprising, I think, also, if millennials have been rewarded. I mean, we've rewarded them. We've given them high grades. They've worked hard, but they're used to achieving. And so this survey, this conversation from employers adds another piece to the puzzle of how do we help students in an advising setting understand what are their skills that they have developed. How are they going to transfer the really powerful liberal arts and in some cases professional education that they've had into the workplace. We gave you also the Gallup-Purdue survey, 2014. Real jobs, great jobs, great lives. Great jobs, great lives. And I think it's an interesting study, but I wanted to just highlight one piece of it. One of the things that they talk about there is well-being. And of course, that's what we want for our students, to have well-being in their life. They look at how work and engagement at work can lead to greater well-being for employees. Now let's assume our students are now in the workplace. And there were these 6 items that I thought were really interesting that the experienced students had at college, because they did 30,000 college graduates and reflected on what were their experiences that led to their perception of their commitment at work. If graduates had a professor who cared about them as a person, made them excited about learning, and encouraged them to pursue their dreams, their odds of being engaged at work doubled. The percentages suggest what percentage strongly agreed that they had that. So 63% strongly agreed they had a person, a professor, who cared about them as a person. What's interesting is that only 11% had all 3. If graduates had what we sometimes call experiential or deep learning experiences, internship, job, leadership roles, how they could apply their learning, these 3 doubled their odds of being engaged at work. Though the percentages are somewhat lower. 29% felt they had applied learning outside the classroom. 6% had all 3. What is interesting is only 3% of the graduates had all 6. So I think it gives us food for thought about how we think about the 4 years they're with us and the experiences we want to give them. Rachel mentioned the NSSE, and you've probably looked at it deeply. It's been widely promulgated, but I wanted to look at a couple points for BU. Because this tells us not just how, because there's a way of sometimes I think you think, well, 30,000 college graduates, I'm sure they went to far inferior institutions. But the NSSE allows us to see what do students at Boston University say was their experience. And I think there is a fair amount of work to be done here. In particular, this slide, which pits us against our peers, not against every institution, higher education, but against other private research universities. And really in only one category is our average higher. How many times have you and an academic advisor discussed your academic interests, course selections, and academic performance? The others, we don't come out quite as well against our peers. And again, all of these require much more analysis because size is a factor. BU is the 4th largest private school in the country. So maybe if we looked at, compared to NYU and USC and BU, our numbers would be a little bit different. But still, I think there is work that suggests that there's work that we have to do. I want to conclude my remarks with this question, to pose it and to set up maybe further discussion. Because I posed it to myself. Can Boston University become known as a premier research institution that also exemplifies powerful advising practices and leads the way in helping students connect their academic experience to their identity and to the workplace? I think if we see ourselves as being, all of us, being a part of a web and trying to get students as connected as we can to each other in their experiences here, that it augurs well for their going forth into the workplace. So I'm going to conclude my remarks there, and then we can take up some of the other matters as we go forward. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jen.
Thank you, Linda. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jen Guillemin. I'm from the College of Fine Arts, and I oversee advising in the School of Visual Arts, and I've been doing this for many, many years. And I want to start by saying that the students have really been my greatest teachers in my role. It was because of the students that about 12 years ago I realized I could use some help with my listening skills. And I went back and got a second master's degree in counseling, which serves me well in the work that I do. I also, by getting trained in better listening, started to hear my students better. And what I heard is we could be doing a better job helping to prepare them for life after college. And this became very interesting to me over the last 5 years and has led to several things: a development of an internship program, an expansion of an artist development series, the creation of an arts leadership minor, and finally the creation of a course that I teach called Cultural Entrepreneurship. And developing this course has been a wonderful way to really help to inform my thinking and to really transform how I advise students. So I'm in charge of the slides, I remember. So here I am. So let me begin by saying, what is cultural entrepreneurship? This is not what the topic is about, but since this is framing my thinking, we need a moment to talk about this. So cultural entrepreneurship is the capacity to leverage products and services at the intersection of arts and culture, business and technology, creating a social and cultural impact. So there is nested cultural entrepreneurship right in the middle of this Venn diagram. This got me really excited because rather than seeing and thinking about the struggling artists who don't have much to, we have to convince everybody of the value, we are actually at the center, creative professionals are at the center of a really exciting time. And this comes to this idea of artists and innovators see the world not as it is, but as it could be. So this is by an artist who used styrofoam cups to create these clouds. You may have seen it at the Museum of Fine Arts. And this is a good reminder that arts and artists have an important role to play in the 21st century. And this is where I am interested in talking today about adopting an entrepreneurial mindset, not just for art students, but for all students. So in preparing and researching for my class, I read lots of different books, but one book that stands out in my mind is a book written by Daniel Pink, and it's called A Whole New Mind. And he talks about this transition from a knowledge-based economy to a conceptual age. And some of the qualities, he says, will be important in the 21st century include innovative out-of-the-box thinking, comfort with ambiguity, ability to collaborate, versatility, ability to take risks, cross-disciplinary thinking, understanding new technologies, and a global perspective. And what was really heartening when I was reading this book is artists naturally have a lot of these qualities. And artists are also people who are taking time to be contemplative, to imagine. We were talking earlier today about the need for this, and this is what artists do. But this is something that all students can do, and Boston University is an ideal place to really develop these skills. We are a large urban university in a major city with so many opportunities and resources available to our students, and we as advisors can be facilitators for this process. So what I'd like to do now is introduce you to 3 students who I think really embrace this entrepreneurial mindset. So the first is Taylor Mortel. And Taylor Mortel came as a freshman. She was weighing psychology, she was an art major. She really wanted to work at this intersection of arts and healing. So I'm going to quickly read a quote from Taylor. What I did is I sent an email to several students saying, Could you talk to me about advising, what's meaningful advising and what has helped you in your process here at Boston University? So she responded, Jen connected me to a volunteer opportunity to teach studio art at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute because of my interest in the role art can play in healing. I found it extremely valuable to learn about the intersection between art and healing in a hospital setting and to hear how patients viewed it in the context of their treatment. So what was great about Taylor is she had the wherewithal as a freshman to identify where she wanted to be working. And not only that, but to share it with other people. So that when I heard of an opportunity at Dana-Farber, I immediately thought of Taylor. What she did after, as a freshman, after the marathon bombings in 2013, she took this thing that she had, this interest in art and healing, and she said, we are a city in pain and art can make a difference. So she organized a year-long community art project involving people all over the city to make art together. And from this experience, she got a lot of media recognition. And 2 weeks ago, she just went and gave a TED Talk in North Dakota, was flown out there to do a TED Talk. And so this is the ripple effect that I'm talking about. You identify what you want to do, you start to put things into motion, and wonderful things start to happen. This is another student. This is Taylor Smith. She wrote, my advisor is always fostering connections between students, faculty, and contexts outside of the BU community, resulting in new and unexpected opportunities for students. She made it logistically possible for me to complete two study abroad programs in Paris and London and still graduate in 4 years. And she helped me acquire an internship at Transcultural Exchange. Clearly, she's an exceptional student because doing 2 degrees in 4 years doesn't seem like it's even possible, and throwing in two study abroad opportunities really complicates matters. But I use this as an example of how we as advisors can also adopt an entrepreneurial mindset. Hearing that a student wants to do this, sometimes a reaction I know that I feel sometimes is no, it is not possible. But what I have learned over the years is to turn it around and say, how is this possible? How can you make this work? What can you do to see this through? And she figured out a way, working in collaboration with advisors, and really got to take full advantage of all the resources at our university. Finally, Danielle Reeves is my third example. She writes, conversations with Jen have helped me to understand that people are essentially what make things happen. You need to start with yourself. What is it that I care about? What makes me happy? What doesn't? These are things that actually build a life and a career. The real guidance hasn't come in the form of grand enlightenment. I was disappointed that she said that. I was hoping she would say something else, but that's okay. It is the little check-ins, the conversations, the get-to-know-yous week to week that lead to meaningful advising. So let's just go back to the qualities that are going to be needed for the 21st century workforce and align them with what we can be doing as advisors. 1, get to know your advisees. That helps. 2, help students to imagine connections between their different interests. Rather than seeing these as desperate things that they have to reconcile, see, are there interesting intersections going on? And then help them to encourage on self-reflection and taking action. Like Taylor Mortel, find a way to take your idea and put it into motion. Challenge students to expand their interest into a bigger context through internships, informational interviews, electives, volunteer activities. And being a good listener always helps. And so finally, advisors can help students to see their potential and to generate their own unique opportunities. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Paul Lipton, and I am the director of the undergraduate program in Neuroscience in CAS, and I'm also the director of UROP, the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program, which has a deadline coming up when for summer funding? Yeah. When? Wednesday, yes, very good, thank you. So I just want to say real quickly, Beth mentioned that this is the second annual advising symposium, and I was a graduate student here in the 90s and came back in 2003, and I think it's quite extraordinary and tremendous that folks can actually be in a room together talking about something like this. Because I do recall when I first got back here to do what I do in 2003, this didn't happen. The landscape did not look like this, and I think it's really beautiful that it's happening. I went to college at a very large research university, just like BU, and I was a terrible student. I was unmotivated, I was uninitiated, and I didn't know how to do what we essentially are asking our students to do. And I found myself often struggling with figuring out even how to think about what it is that I needed to do. And I'm not placing any blame on the professors that I interacted with or the faculty advisors that I never interacted with. I think what it came down to in that instance was I simply didn't know. I had no idea how to make this work. I had no idea how to navigate the process of moving through, or taking ownership of my own education. And that's one of the things that when I came on board to work with faculty to develop the undergraduate neuroscience program, by some strange administrative glitches, I became the person who was the primary advisor for the program. And at the time, there were only 30 students, so it wasn't a very difficult job to do. But I hadn't actually given much thought to what it would look like to be the advisor to these students. I knew what I was supposed to be doing in the classroom, and I knew what it meant to be thinking about designing curriculum, and I knew what it meant to just interact with students, just to be human about it. But I had no idea what it meant to have that larger conversation with them. And I didn't understand exactly what that process was supposed to look like. So I drew on a couple of different things over the last couple of years and have really, I think, developed my own philosophy for advising undergraduates. And the first one was to draw on my own experience as an undergraduate, realizing that I didn't even know what questions to ask. I didn't know I was supposed to ask questions. I didn't know that it was really, that I had some responsibility to reach out to folks who could possibly guide me through that process. So that was the first thing. The second thing that I tend to draw on, and I think I draw on that more today than I used to, and by used to I mean a couple years ago. So neuroscience. Neuroscience is a science. I'm a scientist. And as an undergraduate program, I'm not out to create neuroscientists. I think our responsibility is to engage students in a process of thinking, in a process of asking questions. And those are similar types of questions that students can be asking, whether it's a science degree, a philosophy degree, a fine arts degree, and otherwise. And so I regard neuroscience as really the vehicle through which I'm engaging students in this process of thinking about the things that they're interested in, how to apply the things they're interested in, and to engage with those, and to work with members of their community, their peers, and others to apply the information and the knowledge that they're learning. And so I don't see that what I'm doing in the classroom is all that different at all from what I'm doing in those advising conversations. In other words, in the classroom, if I'm asking them to think about a problem and ask certain questions and to figure out how to find the answers to those questions, that's exactly what I'm doing with them in my advising meetings with these students. And a couple of examples. Oh yeah, I have the thing too. Someone else mentioned this one today at the table I was at this morning, something very similar. I believe the biggest reason I'm in here in college is to get the piece of paper with a degree on it. In other words, she's looking for the credential, and the credential is the thing that she thinks is the most important thing. This actually happened on Friday, last Friday. This is a very intelligent young woman who is highly motivated. She's engaged in a number of outreach programs and works with our student organization, and she does research, but yet she's still struggling. So she's a neuroscience major. She's also getting another degree in another college, so she's a dual degree candidate. And what she's struggling with is that she is absolutely uninterested in the second degree. And she chose it because, as someone mentioned at some point this morning, she feels like she should. She feels like that's what she needs to come out of here looking good to somebody. And when she first said this, at first I was a little stunned, but that she said it out loud. And so the first question I asked her was, first, do you really think that's the reason you're here? Do you really think that the value to you in being here and having access to these resources, do you really think the value of you doing these outreach programs and creating a brain day event for the Boston University community and members of the K through 12 community around us, do you really think that the purpose of that is to be able to show somebody just on a piece of paper that you did it? And she said, well, no, of course not. Right? She recognized that, no, that wasn't. And so we kept going with that. I kept asking her, well, what is it about the courses that you're taking in that other degree program don't jive with you? And she was able to articulate very, very clearly what it was that wasn't sitting right, what it was that was very different about those courses from the courses she was taking in the neuroscience program. And she got it. She appreciated that, I get it. I'm doing it again. And she does really recognize, I'm doing it because I thought I had to. I don't have to. This is where she got to with it. She was able to recognize that I don't need to do this. And it was quite satisfying because this is the kind of thing we hear, obviously in different forms. I'm sure most of the people in this room have heard something similar. And I think it's an extremely important thing to address because so much of what our students and their parents are hearing is exactly this sort of thing. And this is part of that empowerment. This is part of that ownership. This is part of getting those students to recognize that there is so much more, and that conversation, that advising conversation, as far as I'm concerned, looks a lot like what we're doing in the classroom. So the second one was, may I count course X for my major? This was another question that a student asked at the beginning of the semester. She's graduating in May, and she has the expectation that she's going to go into grad school in about a year or two. She's going to take some time off and work in a laboratory. And she said course X is a course that's not a part of the neuroscience program. And she was hoping that because it looked kind of similar-ish, that I would count it toward the major. And this is, again, a very common question. So I looked at what she's done. I looked at some past emails to figure out what it is she hopes to be doing. And then I looked at the course. And this is a beautiful class. This is a really lovely class that I had never even seen before. I asked her to come in to chat about this. And I asked her to tell me a little bit about how she found this course. I asked her to describe to me in a little bit more detail what she hopes to do after she graduates and then beyond. And the way the conversation went was for her to get to the point where she realized that this was an easy way just to get out of here. I got her to the point where she was able to recognize that my job is twofold. My job is to ensure that she has access to the resources that she needs in order to be prepared to move on and to be able to explain to grad schools or future employers that she has a skill set that is going to serve not only them, but also serve her based on where she wants to go. And my second responsibility that I wanted her to understand was that I have a responsibility to preserve the integrity of the program. And she got there, and she recognized it. And on her own, as she left, she said, I'm going to go look for other courses. Right, so she got it, and that was the point. And those were the questions that I asked her. Those were the answers that I asked her to come up with to appreciate the direction that this conversation had to go. The last quote, I want to get involved in research. How do I get started? And of course, this is also a very common one. This is one that I see a lot of nowadays. And this is a great question, and it's an important question, and obviously an increasingly important question. And my first question to them is, why do you want to get involved in research? And they often say, well, because it's going to look good on a resume. You know, I think it's important that I get some of this experience. Absolutely. But that's not the answer that I'm looking for, nor is it the answer I'm hoping that they're going to give me ultimately. So in this particular case, I think there is immense value in having these young folks recognize exactly what that experience is going to provide for them, beyond what it looks like on paper, beyond the ability just to say, I did it. There is so much more that one can derive from that undergraduate research experience or that hands-on experiential learning program that they're a part of, or outreach programs, or working in classrooms with their faculty, or any number of these different things. That these students, I think it is so important that they recognize, and they come to recognize it themselves, that they arrive at this understanding themselves. I mean, I could tell them blue in the face, and it often, and we see this in the classroom a lot, right? So again, this is part of the conversation that I have, having drawn on my own experience, wishing that I had someone to guide me through these questions, and recognizing that, again, this conversation looks an awful lot like what it does in the classroom. And there you go. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm going to stand up here so I can see all of you. And I'm going to ask you to bear with me because I'm going to refer to my notes. I've got so much to share today, and I want to make sure that I don't overwhelm. I'm Kimberly Delgizzo. I'm the director of the Center for Career Development, the Central Career Office on campus. And I want to just let you know today that my remarks will be particularly relevant and related to what we do in the central office. But I want to recognize that we have incredible career colleagues on campus. I see a number of our colleagues here from the other career offices, and I want to note that you can tap, and I encourage you to tap resources in the School of Hospitality Administration, the College of Communication, the College of Engineering, School of Management, School of Public Health, the School of Law. So there are tremendous resources on this campus, and my talk today will be particularly about what I and my incredible team do to partner with faculty members. Those of you in those other schools and colleges, I want to urge you to reach out to your career colleagues as well to see how they complement what we do. So let me just begin by saying we've come together today to discuss meaningful advising. We've heard Rachel describe millennials in a way which I think helps us to better understand today's students. And in this second session, our colleagues on the panel have shared data which tells us much more about 21st century students, employers, the workplace, and challenges that we're facing in the academy. We, I believe, all want to help students to integrate their academic experience with their career development. It's advantageous for students to begin this process early. I feel that very strongly. I think a number of you feel that very strongly, and we need to convey that message to our students. We want them, we want to help them establish meaningful relationships. We've heard that over and over today. That's something that they want, and I think it's something that we want as well. We feel very strongly, and particularly in the career office, that we want students to embrace an entrepreneurial mindset, that they own this and they understand that this is an opportunity for them to craft their experience at BU in preparation for launching from BU into successful and very fulfilling futures. And we want to ask probing questions, and we want them to ask great questions. So this morning, I'd like to tell you a little bit about how the Center for Career Development hopes to partner with you in an effort to connect student learning with identity and career exploration. You'll see here just a visual of our homepage. I want to remind you that we have a tremendous resource-rich website that I want to invite each and every one of you to dig into, and please encourage your students to go to our website. You'll find a range of things that I think will be helpful. But first, I want to ask a question. How many of you thought, when you began your career in academe, that you'd regularly be having career conversations with students? How many of you thought when you began your career that you'd be having career conversations? Anybody in the room? Take a look around if you would, please. Take a look around. So I see a number of hands, which is tremendous. But in my professional experience, I've had so many conversations with faculty members who have said, I'm passionate about my discipline. I can talk to students about my discipline. I don't know anything about the labor market. I'm not prepared to talk to students about career development. Times have changed. Students want it, and we have an opportunity to prepare them. As you began your career, how many of you either knew a colleague or you yourself felt a bit ill-equipped to talk about career issues? Anybody? Put your hands up if you would, please. Take a look around. I think many people do. So I want you to partner with our office and our career colleagues on campus. We have rich resources and opportunities for partnership. The Center for Career Development, which we commonly call the CCD, helps students to make the most of their BU experience, both their education, what they do inside of the classroom, and what they do outside of the classroom, as they prepare to enter what we know is a global labor market. We offer a wide range of services and resources, all of which center around the cycle of career development. And when I talk about career development, it's not uncommon for students and sometimes faculty members to say, well, what the heck is that? What do you mean by career development? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. We describe career development in 4 stages. The first stage is what we call self-discovery. And that involves developing their decision-making skills. And most importantly, it involves allowing them, inviting them, encouraging them to think about who they are and how who they are informs their decisions. So what skills do they possess that they really enjoy utilizing? Some of the things that they've come to us with in terms of their range of skills are things that they do well, but not things they want to do on a regular basis. So we help them to think about not only the portfolio of skills that they came to BU with, but what are the things that they really love to do? And then we talk about their interests and what are the things that motivate them? What are the things that get them excited? And what are their values? And how do those values guide their decision making? I often tell the story of when I graduated from college as an undergrad, I went into the world of work and I started doing social work. And I loved doing the work that I was doing, but my salary was extremely low. In fact, at the time, it was below poverty level. And at the time, I had no children and I had no mortgage. And I had a part-time job to support me in doing my full-time job. But I loved the work I was doing. Now, at this stage in my life, I'm a single mom, I've had a mortgage. So money is not the only motivating factor for me, but my values change, and everyone's values change over time, depending on where we are. So we encourage students to think about those things. What are those skills and values and interests that guide the decisions that they make and each step along their career path? The next stage beyond self-discovery is exploration. And career exploration is a bit daunting for students because there are hundreds of thousands of choices out there. So we work with students to think about what are some ways that they want to begin to explore, not only the positions and opportunities that are in the labor market now, but the things that might be coming down the road. So exploration is an important engagement that we have with students. The third stage in this process we call building skills. And building skills could be done through any number of experiences. It could be undergraduate research. Certainly it can be internships. It can be study abroad. It can be leadership opportunities. It could be community service opportunities. All of those things help students to develop skills, gain experience, decide what they do love and what they don't love to do. And then the last step in this process of career development is what people typically think of when they think of a career office, and that is that we help them to develop strategies to prepare to go from BU into the graduate school program of interest or into the labor market. So we help them with doing a proactive and reactive job search, and we help them to learn how to interview and prepare their resumes and their cover letters. In fact, we think this process or this cycle of career development is so important, and it's so important to engage students early in their academic experience that we've opened a program or developed a program called Career Directions. And ideally, this is a program for first years, but we actually invite and welcome students at any stage in their development to participate in this. This is a 1-hour, highly interactive, typically small group discussion with our staff and our wonderful student ambassadors. And it introduces students to our office and the wide range of resources available. It introduces them to the cycle of career development. And most importantly, it helps them to better understand what's in it for them. Why the heck should they care about career development? Why should they engage in it now and in the future while they're at BU? One of the important things that we do during the Career Directions program is provide them with an action plan. And we heard earlier about students who check the boxes versus the deep thinkers. I want to suggest that we encourage them to do both. We know they like to check the boxes, so we give them a checklist. But there are things on the checklist that encourage them to be sure they're talking to their faculty members and their advisors, and they're engaging in those all-important conversations. And that's part of this developmental process. Now, I want to tell you that prior to our conversation today or our presentation today, I reached out to a number of faculty members who we have partnered with and done collaborative programming with, and asked for some feedback so that I might share some stories to encourage you to consider how you as an advisor or you as a faculty member might be able to or interested in partnering with the Career Development Center in working with your students. And we received some wonderful feedback, and I am most grateful for that. I want to begin, unfortunately, I can't share everybody's words, which were really very supportive and helpful. I don't know what I just did. Sorry. I don't know if it's, pardon? Oh, I'm back. Thank you. I want to begin before we talk about Mary Beth's feedback, which was very helpful. I wanted to tell you that we received some feedback also from Anna Henchman, who I know is here in the room, assistant professor and director of undergraduate studies in the English department. 2 years ago, Anna and one or two of her colleagues contacted me and invited me and some of my colleagues to meet with them because they were talking about doing a program called What Every English Major Needs to Know. And we hear questions all the time from English majors. What the heck can I do with this major? So in reflecting on the program that we did collaboratively, Anna said she's continued to share with her students some of what I talked about that day. And some of those messages included conveying an understanding that choice of major does not generally dictate a career, that one can follow their academic passions and develop competencies which can transfer to many different career options. Number two, there are a multitude of organizations across a wide range of industries that post internship and career opportunities in BU CareerLink, and that are also open to students outside of BU CareerLink. And they are eager to recruit BU students from across all majors. So for those students who say there are only jobs for business majors or engineers or the computer science folks, that's not true. There are wonderful opportunities for all of our students. In fact, in BU CareerLink, for example, on any given day during the calendar year, there are between 1,500 and 2,500 postings just in that one system alone. She also mentioned that students benefit from self-discovery, from career exploration, from informational interviews, and informed decision-making to find not just a job, but our goal, which is to help them find a great fit as they launch from BU. And finally, she mentioned that students are hungry for the type of information we have on our website, including resources such as, what can I do with a major in? And we do have a number of resources such as that. Now, I also want to mention a few more pieces of feedback that we received. Mary Beth Guzman, again, was very generous in providing feedback, and I've just pulled a little bit out. One student remarked that he liked the sense of, we'll meet you where you are. She says it reminded her that none of us have a clear path. It is only through exploring that we find our way. I also think that the fact that we used class time for this presentation, communicated to the students how valuable the Career Directions program is, and I very strongly agree with that. Judith Epstein Fisher spoke at some length about the program that one of our colleagues did in her class at CFA. This workshop was most helpful as it provided some very practical and helpful ways to look at their finely tuned theatrical skills in a broader way and gave them concrete methods to talk and write about themselves outside of a professional theater context. And finally, Nancy Lowenstein from Sargent said that she requires students to meet with someone in our office to have their resume reviewed. And in fact, she has them ask our staff members to sign a form indicating that they actually did meet with us. She said she's learned a lot herself by reviewing the website, and it's helped her to inform her students and advisees much better, and has given her ideas to pass on to them regarding job seeking and networking, resume and cover letter writing. She thinks the center is a valuable resource. As advisors, she suggests that you might encourage students to more actively use our office. So I want to thank everybody who provided feedback. I wasn't able to use all of it today, but the sense that I have from the wonderful colleagues we've worked with is that this is making a difference and it's helping their students. And finally today, before I conclude, I want to talk with you about top 10 ways to partner with the CCD. Now, I've just scratched the surface. There are so many other ways that we've done programming and had engagement with academic departments and professional advisors, but I'm going to mention a few that have been of note. The first one is to host an introduction to the Center for Career Development. There are actually a number of faculty members who don't have a sense of who we are and what we do. So we've gone to faculty meetings to talk about it. We've gone into classrooms. We've hosted meetings for groups of advisees to introduce our office and our services to the community. I also want to invite and strongly encourage you to sponsor a career directions session for the students that you work with. and then utilize and refer students to resources such as what can I do with a major in? My sense is that many of you probably hear that question over and over again, and we do have some great resources on the resources section of our website. And then share first destination data with students. I don't know if you folks ever hear the questions, but we often hear students saying, well, where do BU grads with a physics degree go? Or where did the English majors go? What kinds of jobs are they identifying and pursuing? And we are now doing first destination projects annually that provide some data. We have some brief summaries on the website, and if you contact me for more specific detail about your department, if we have it available, we're happy to share it. I will tell you that we want to get our response rate up, so I'm going to ask all of you, when you're working with seniors, to please encourage them when they receive the survey from our office or the college career office that you might find yourself in, please encourage those students to complete the survey. That data is tremendously helpful to BU. It also enhances the value of their degree. The next thing is to sponsor a workshop, and we do such a wide range of workshops, and I haven't listed them all here, but most recently we've done self-discovery workshops in collaboration. We do resume and cover letter workshops, LinkedIn programs. We also encourage you to think about sponsoring an interactive networking session. And that's one in which we share information and we actually get them up and we get them to introduce themselves to each other and to get a better understanding and to try to demystify this networking word. It's fun, it's enjoyable, it's informative, and we want to give them some practice. And then some faculty members have said to us after we've done this that they've then asked their students to do informational interviews and come and report back, which helps students to become better informed. We want to encourage you to sponsor an internship workshop. We've talked a lot today about experiential opportunities and how critically important they are to complementing the academic experience. And we want to encourage you to tell your students about the Yawkey nonprofit internship program. This is a new program which we're very excited about. We have some limited funding, but we have funding for students to pursue internships in nonprofit environments. It's a selective process. It's important to note that at this point it's open to sophomores and juniors, and it's something that is not only a funding source for students, but there's a very strong educational component. So please encourage your students to go to our website. You go to our website and learn more about it. We also have done a number of graduate school preparation workshops, and we're happy to talk to your students about that. We want to encourage you to host a BU Career Link workshop to talk to them about this wonderful resource at their fingertips. And then finally, I want to invite you to contact me. We have limited resources, although many, and we have a limited number of staff members, a finite number. That said, we're really eager to partner with you in any number of ways, and we're open to creativity. Because of the limited resources, we can't always tailor every program we do, but to the best of our ability, we want to be able to do that. So please reach out to me if you have interest in conversation about how we might partner in the future. And then finally, I've given you some contact information, including how to sign up for a weekly newsletter if you're interested in what we're saying to students. And we also invite you to establish an account in BU Career Link so you can take a look at those postings that the students can see. And this information, I think, will be on the website. Yes? So thank you very much for your attention today. And now, what's next?
Do I have a mic? Okay, good. All right, at this point, we're going to pass it over to the facilitators to continue this discussion as a group. We'll give you about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll report out. Table 12, I'm on my way.
Right. Can I have everyone's attention, please? Can I bring it back? Thank you. I hate to stop conversations, but we want to keep going. Thank you all. Oops. All right. So we had some good questions floating around, and the first question was about students who have lots of ideas of what they might want to do next. And none of them are related. And we have another question coming up about the opposite, which are, both are common questions. So how do you help those students get organized? So who had question 1? Anybody like to share?
Stand up, I'm going to get
Oh,
Tell me to sit down again.
Okay.
Okay, so just some quick ideas. Just for the first portion of it is really how to reel students in and get them organized was to, first of all, let them talk. Just let them talk out their ideas and really let them organize their thoughts out loud since millennials don't get to reflect as much. And really listen for themes. And it also will help them pare down what don't you like? So if they say I don't like business, then the thought here was, well, there's one whole school off the list. And then for next, turning it into an action plan was, having concrete next steps, tangible takeaways, thinking about short-term versus long-term goals to release some of those anxiety of I need to know everything right now, and then just encouraging them to check back in so they feel supported throughout the process, not just like a one-time touch.
Who else had question 1? Eric in the back, I see.
Hi, folks. So we came up with a lot of the same kind of stuff, but we thought some of the most important things were to ask questions, to probe more deeply beyond just the initial conversation, not just to problem solve with the student, but really just kind of think, all right, probe deeply about it, putting it back on the student to try to articulate, particularly why they're interested in certain things, and having them explore that and give better language to it. And I think that really helps when then they go out and they talk to people. They can then share the words that, without just, I don't know what I'm doing. So that kind of thing works. Also, crafting a deeper relationship with them in general and encouraging them to explore and going out and meeting people. Lots of, like when they have lots of interests, have them go meet with a faculty member who's a specialist in that area, or have them go join an organization where they can find out more about it, not just the classes. So that's the kind of stuff we thought.
Great, thank you. And looks like Jen's next. Okay.
Okay, it's great going after these two because they're very detailed, so that's great. So we'll just put one little cherry on top of what they've said and say that one thing we talked about is helping students to source what is external influences, either coming from family or expectations, unrealistic expectations maybe that they've set for themselves where they don't really want those things, and if they can rule those out and really focus on what's coming from what they ultimately want through good listening, through coming up with lists, and through kind of building and talking to people who are doing the things they might be interested in doing.
Great, thank you. All right, did anyone else have question 1? No? Okay, we're moving on. All right, question 2, kind of the flip side. When advising students who love their major, they love their field, but they have no idea what it might lead to. Sort of what Kimberly was talking about, I'm an English major, but what do I do? I was one of those, by the way. So how can we help them start to get organized and integrating their identity with their career and articulate that kind of integration of what am I taking away from this major that's not just a lockstep career? So who had question 2? Oh, I see Mary Beth. Sorry, I'm making people run. Oh, I'll go to Doris because she's closer, and then we'll go to Mary Beth.
Okay, so there's a lot of good stuff. I'll distill it down to just a little bit. Talking to faculty, staff, career counselors, professionals, it's a good idea to have students help try things, encourage them to try things out, but to kind of reframe what the goal is for them a little bit, because it's hard to know what it is that you're going to like in the workforce and what you're not going to like until you actually do it. And so think a little bit more about what you like about your major, what skills are you developing, what kind of atmosphere do you picture yourself in, and then think about the transferable skills you're getting, and then go out and get work experience. And if you don't like it, it's okay to change your mind later. So,
Always good to remember. All right, and I think, Paul, yes.
Hi. I think the 2 main points that we came up with are to help students recognize that a major is neither a defining feature of what you are prepared to do, nor is it the thing that you are going to have to do forever, right? It's not the thing that, it's not the badge that you will, well, it kind of is actually, but it's not the, so I think that's one of the big important points, to get students to recognize that rather your major is a lens through which we should try to encourage students to recognize what it is that they're actually deriving from their particular major. What skill set, what cognitive intellectual skills are they working on through the different classes, right? So that was one major point. And the other one was not that dissimilar, and it was a point that Linda made, that college is both a means to an end, and it is also a means in and of itself. It's an end in and of itself, and helping students to recognize more the latter, that college is a thing that they should be present and appreciating what it is that they're doing here, and that it is not simply just, it's not, college itself is not the box to check off, right?
Great, thank you. All right, Mary Beth.
I think I can do it without the microphone. We talked about how in advising conversations with students, often one aspect that is very interesting are their interests, which may not be obvious in their major. So sometimes there is an interesting component that they're not bringing to the table, and through conversation, that can be a really interesting piece. In terms of a practical approach to majors and career possibilities, we talked about either professional advisors or faculty advisors in each school or department being identified as repositories of student stories, so that when that question comes up, what can I do with this major, we can quickly identify someone, send an email to this person, meet with them. They're the contact person who is keeping track. And certainly the CCD has that information as well. We talked about advising students to go to the CCD, look and explore there, and then make an appointment to come back and report to us what they discovered. And in the process of recounting their experience, that could be a very interesting conversation.
And just to, I don't want my table to feel left out, we also had this question. We talked a little bit about some probing questions to ask students who present this. And they were things like, well, what do you want to learn? What skills do you want to gain? And one of the more probing kind of career-related questions any advisor can ask is, well, how do you want to next spend your time? What is your day going to look like? We talked about questions like, you know, where do you want, like, Susan Jackson said, do you want to sit at a desk? Do you want to, you know, interact with people? Do you want to spend your time at the computer? Do you want to spend some of your time outside? What kind of impact do you want to have? Do you want to see results of your work at the end of the day, at the end of a month, at the end of a year? Never. Those kinds of questions. You know, what kind of impact do you want to have? So just beginning those career-related life, how you want to spend your time questions are good. All right, moving on. Question 3. This is a good concrete one. How does the CCD or the career office in your area collaborate with advising? And if there's not current collaboration, what are some ways you envision this partnership happening? So who had this question?
Well, we'll go first.
Thank you.
We had a great conversation, and at the end got back to question 3. So, well, it was topic based. It was I like the interest one. But this is what I came away with, a couple things. First of all, you know, I used to think it was easier for you advisors in the professional schools because career, what was the career piece, right? You knew what it was, SMG, you know where they're going, engineering, they're going to get jobs. And I felt like the challenge for those of us in CAS was how do you make the major connect to a career? But what I've discovered, and I think partly it speaks to us and what we do, is that you guys are working in areas where you don't necessarily have that training, that you're advisors by training, you're counselors by training, and that it's actually kind of a challenge to help students understand completely what their roles are, and it made me realize that it's not as easy as it seems. The other thing I'll add is our table is very eclectic in terms of schools and colleges, and there are very tight bonds in some cases to the career center in your area, and then others like CAS where it's not a formal connection, but something that's full of possibility.
Thank you. Oh, great.
Hello, everybody. So there are a couple of things that we came up with. Okay, first of all, you know, I have been a faculty advisor for the last 10 years, and I have noticed that how the questions that I get has changed. Okay, so 10 years ago, I would rarely get questions about internship, job opportunities, and things like that. And these days, anytime we have a conversation about what classes the student is going to take next semester, question come up, you know, this particular class is going to help me to get an internship. So from that point of view, CCD CCD have been really, really helpful to us. So there are a couple of things that can be added to what CCD is already doing, is having a tighter collaboration between CCD and the departments. Okay, so for example, having an open house for not for the whole CAS, but for the department by department. Okay, you know, invite the student, have pizza, and you have to have food. Okay, otherwise student won't come. So, so invite the student over and have Kimberly or someone from the CCD to come by and talk about it. So that is one thing. And the other thing that was mentioned was that you know, the conversation should be broader than just finding an internship and finding a particular job, and it has to be a discussion about the self-discovery, and it has to be a discussion about the career opportunities overall. You know, what kind of direction that the broad economic direction that we are looking into, and things like that.
Thank you. Oh, yes. Tom, go ahead.
So we focused a little more on the faculty side. We had a variety ranging from undeclared majors to extremely motivated graduate students at the table, but most people have some kind of a working relationship. We did identify one that needs to be worked on, and I'm part of it. But the two takeaways I would say that we came up with is that we all have irons in the fire, and we need to keep looking at them. The words that we came up with were to reconnect between each other, to realign, to reevaluate, and to continue to refine those relationships and those projects that we work on with the center. And also, in reaching out to the various departments around the campus, try to make the faculties who are already working with the Center for Career Development the stars, and highlight the work that they're already doing. But in doing so, work to be consistent, avoid overload in messaging, repeat communications, but keep it in a consistent and coordinated fashion.
Right. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the next question. Oops. Uh-oh. Okay. So how do you begin to advise a student who says, should I change my major to something I'm passionate about and good at, although sometimes those aren't the same thing, or stick with a major that has a more practical potential, and which I tend to struggle? And the bigger question, I think, is where's the influence of that coming? Ruthie.
Thank you. We talked about some of the things that have already been discussed today, but one of the main points we talked about is really the misnomer of the word passion. We think students sometimes think it's sort of the golden ticket, and if I can figure out my passion, all will be right with the world. But they don't necessarily know what that means. So sort of defining, you know, strengths and areas that you enjoy, and then digging within that. You know, if you think that engineering is your passion, then what is it that you really like about it? Let's dig a little deeper, because if you're not doing well in it, perhaps there are skill sets that we can identify, quantitative problem solving, things of that nature that would be applicable to other fields. And then encouraging to the student that it's an ever-evolving process, and it's okay to switch, it's okay to see threads in different areas. This is not something you're going to answer in the next 20 minutes. And getting back to some of the themes we've talked about today, Eric's table seemed to be on point with it as well as ours was. Connecting with the student, having the conversation, having follow-up, constantly engaging with the student, and that it's not going to be solved immediately, and that's okay.
Allison.
So we talked a lot about the same things as well, but we really talked about starting a conversation with the student about what do they value and what makes them think that one major might have more practicality over another major, seeing if they can integrate both, and also mitigating expectations about jobs right out of college. And talking maybe about through exploration, maybe talking to alumni or seeing what other people in your family or friends have done right out of college. And then also, we talked a lot about how parents tend to have a lot of, especially with this question, a lot of weight on what a student majors in. And if they're really not passionate about the major that their parents picked, perhaps doing some research to present to their parents about jobs in their specific passion. And then, but also as advisors, we need to be respectful of cultural issues and of parental involvement.
Great, thank you. All right.
So our table recognized that some working adults struggle with this question too. Maybe people in this room who are asking themselves right now. We talked about how as advisors, we want to try and peel away the layers that underlie this particular question, and that students need to learn to trust themselves and have the comfort level to have these kind of scary conversations, and that this will evolve throughout their lives.
Great, thank you. All right, and our last question is kind of a great wrap up to this whole second session, which is, what are some of your favorite questions for talking about these issues with students? And I think no matter what your role on campus in advising capacity, you don't have to be an expert on the world of career and work, but you can be an expert in teaching students how to think about these things. And so what are some of your gems that you like to ask students? And this is a great way to wrap up and get some good takeaways. So who had question 5? All right.
Again, kind of harkening back to what Ruthie and Allison were talking about, we wanted to ask them, what are you excited about? What are the little things you do on a daily basis, not just your end goals, but what excites you on a daily basis? We also talked about setting those end goals, but then getting specific with them, but then also leaving the door open to just say yes to something maybe you wouldn't expect, and you never know where that will lead you. I always ask my students, well, did you ask? You know, if you want something, did you ask for it? Because I think in a really interesting way, they're being brought up where these things are set for them, activities are structured for them, but how many times they don't feel empowered to just ask for what they want. And if you don't ask for what you want, the answer is always no, right? So just ask. And then also, who are you connected to? Because I think one thing we haven't talked a lot about today is the alumni network and the value of, yes, we are here in our own little world and we try to stay connected to our careers, but the truth is that we need to look to the people who have graduated 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, because they are living what we're talking about right now, is connecting what we're teaching and also the career. So who are they connected to, and establishing those relationships early and fostering those as they're going, so that we're not only talking about education, but we're talking about then implementing that education.
Fantastic. Good.
Hi. Our table had lots of pearls of wisdom. One of the questions that we like to ask is, what do you see yourself doing from day to day? What kind of work environment are you looking for? We also like to ask, how can you test out what you want to do when you graduate beyond taking classes? Can you do an internship, join a club, study abroad, something to get your hands dirty a little bit more? Another great one that we heard was, if your life is flashing before your eyes at the end of your life, is the movie that's going to play one worth watching? I know. That was a great one.
That's deep. All right. All right, just drop the mic. We're done. Yeah, okay.
And for students who are struggling because their family has a different expectation than they do, and it's not realistic for them to completely scrap their family's plan, asking them how they might try and meet their family's expectations while weaving in things that are important to them.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Faith. So we had a few pointed questions. The first one being things like, where do you see yourself next year? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Questions to ask the juniors and above as they start to grapple with these issues. But then questions to ask, we had some from athletics, so asking the athletes and also relevant people like artists, like, what are your motivators? Who are you outside of this one identifying character? And when we also talked about dealing with the silence of an open-ended question, how dealing with extroverts, it's very easy because they're very forward with their thoughts versus trying to understand how to deal with introverts and letting them sit and think with it. And we talked about versus open-ended questions, having a more detailed path of self-discovery for them using Myers-Briggs or the risk work personality test. We also talked to help them narrow their stress and choice, maybe not asking them what they want to do, but what they don't want to do. Hopefully get them to, cross out huge subjects in colleges. And then we also asked how to give these questions to seniors who may be be worried that after all these 4 years they're not happy with the major that they have, and obviously it might be too late both time-wise and financially to make this sudden change. How can you find meaning in the time that you've spent here? And also to help them identify memorable moments. And we also, the topic we ended on were how to ask the right questions and more specific questions, and that maybe you have to develop a relationship with a student to be able to ask them, financial issues and parental relationships.
Right. Any other pearls of wisdom? I think that was great. And I hope this session really left you with those pearls of wisdom. If nothing else, we talked about planting the seed with the students. We hope this planted a seed for you on how to integrate thinking about career and identity into everyday advising, in addition to referring back and forth. So I'm going to turn it over to Stacy. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody. So I don't know about you, but I've got the goosebumps from all the wonderful ideas and the passion that was clearly shown in this room today. I just want to take 2 minutes, and then we're gonna have lunch. I want to thank a few people without whom this day would not have happened. First, let's give it up for the facilitators. First of all, So the facilitators were folks who, and this is back to the notion of connection. These are folks some of whom are on the advising network, but we put a call out to those who are on the advising network to say, hey, anybody in your unit want to become a member of the planning team for the symposium. So many folks here, you don't have to be on the advising network to get involved. That's the point, is where the advising network is reaching its tentacles out and getting people involved. So thank you so much to all of the facilitators. To the planning team, let's see. There we go. The planning team, again, for the folks that we've been meeting for this particular session for several Mondays in a row. And again, it was the brainchild of many, and it was an amazing team. The steering committee, Steve Jarvie. Stand up, Steve, so we know. We all know Steve. Ashish Gangopatai. Melanie Mathias from Sargent. And Rachel Reiser, Anna Henchman, I don't know if Anna's still here, and myself, and Beth had asked us to put this together, and we never say no to Beth, so we did that. And then finally, again, I want to acknowledge Kelly Connors, PJ Jorgensen, who I don't know, she might be at another event for all I know. These two folks, these two women really provided everything for the details of the day, down to the name tags and the algorithm for, which was basically PJ and Kelly figuring out who was at what table. And then Amy Fox, who's in the back, who's on my team at CGS, and she's been the scribe for the day. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We are going to have an evaluation that we're going to send out at the end of the day, so please, if you can, give us feedback. We really appreciate it. I think that's it. Have I missed anything? I don't think so. So now we will eat, but I don't think we can all leave at the same time. So I'm going to have tables 1, 2, and 3 get up, and then there you go. And lunch is right out here. And again, sit wherever you like. Thank you, everybody.